llorona que yo.
Oh. KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles. This is Cut to the Chase, and we have Sylvester Rivers here. It's a special fun drive programming show, and Sylvester Rivers, hey, how you doing, man?
I am great. My theme isn't actually played live. Just type it up.
I'm your theme right now.
You know, I like that. You have to come in every Friday at 8 o'clock.
You want me to start humming?
No. Okay, enough is enough.
All right.
But listen, we have a great show today. A really excellent show, basically dealing with what's going on in the world as far as all these military incursions. And wow, so we have our guest who's going to be with us, Jerry. Let me get ready. I had to run in there. Jerry's on the line. He's with the Veterans for Peace. We have some clips.
He is ready.
He's ready, good. But before we do that, I want to just take a few minutes and say we are in our fund drive. And my goal, our goal in this next hour is $1,500. Why is it $1,500? Because that's really minuscule for what we bring you. It's really minuscule for what we bring you. We can get maybe 3 people pledging $500.
Yes.
That's that. Or 15 people, let me get my math right.
Let's do it.
Doing $100. But that is our goal. Maybe we can get a matching fund. And we're going to go to our interview. I have some clips I want to play, some from our past shows. They're numbered, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because I want to show you what we do here. And what we do here is we try to take out the chip. I was talking to my bass player, Latif, who also did our theme song, about, he says, you know what, we're born with chips in our bodies to program us into a certain mindset. And so what we do here is we want to get that chip out and put the truth in, because the chip makes you think of different things. It makes you not question. We're programmed, and the program is very, very intense. And so our guest today will be talking about how he deprogrammed himself. And our goal, like I said, is $1,500. We do have premiums also. For those of you who know, we had Asher Kwesi on before. We're going to have a premium by Asher Kwesi. He's coming to town. And this is the season where we have all this misinformation. As many of you just celebrated Thanksgiving. A lot of people didn't. There's boycotts on. And the reason Asher Kwesi talks about, he says, he's going to be in town in about a week from this Saturday. And that's a $65 donation. Pair of tickets to African History Lecture by Asher Kwesi, speaking on the African origin of the holy birth of the Christian Christmas holiday. That's Saturday, 12/13/25. And that's for a $65 donation. So we want to get this $1,500 started right now. Maybe we can get a matching pledge. We also have the autobiography of Assata Shakur. For those of you who already pledged, you say, I already pledged. You know what? That's great. But if you have an extra $100, many of you do. Many of you don't. If you don't pledge. If you do, pledge it. So we want to get our $1,500 before we start not before we start, but during the program.
Well, you know, Sylvester, folks can pledge for this radio station, and that we can stay on the air for shows like Democracy Now!, which we just heard, and then you got all these other great programs coming up. But yes, pledge for this station.
And what I try to do in this particular program is give you things that that you don't always hear from other places and programs, especially not on radio. And, you know, radio is under attack. 818, we did not give out the number, so let me give out the number. 818-985-5735. Hit option 2. We're going to get into the program now. First, I want to welcome my guest. Jerry, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. Very glad to be with you on a beautiful Friday morning.
Man, it's a beautiful Friday morning. Let me tell you about Jerry. Jerry, while training as an Army Special Forces medic In 1968, excuse me. Thank you for muting. We used to have a mute button here. I guess it's no longer available. But I'll talk to Charlie about that. While training as an Army Special Forces medic in 1968, Jerry Condon began speaking out against the Vietnam War and refusing all orders. Wow, refusing all orders. Jerry, were they illegal? I'm going to keep going on with your bio. Were they illegal orders? That's my question.
Well, certainly the order to go fight in an illegal, immoral war in Vietnam was an illegal order.
I agree with you. The Army ordered him to deploy to Vietnam. He refused, was court-martialed, and sentenced to a dishonorable discharge and 10 years in prison. He escaped from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, fled to Canada, and then to Sweden. He lived in Stockholm for 3 years, working with the American Deserters Committee, and then he returned to Canada, where you worked with the American Exile Collective, Amex Canada. Wow. After 6 years in exile, Jerry returned to the U.S. in 1975 as part of a campaign for amnesty for all Vietnam War resistors. His jail sentence was ultimately dropped, and he has been a peace and solidarity activist ever since. He organized the first 2 veterans delegations to revolutionary Nicaragua in 1983. Wow, in 1984. You've been busy, man, and has traveled numerous times to Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. We're going to talk about that. He is a past national president and current board member of Veterans for Peace. He was recently awarded the 2025 U.S. Peace Prize. Thank you. Somebody who's peaceful getting the Peace Prize rather than a warmonger wanting it. So, I want you to tell us a story. First, I want to play a clip number 1.
My name is Akinsanya Cambone. I was the Lieutenant of Culture for the Sacramento chapter of the Black Panther Party. I'm the artist that illustrated the 10-point platform and program. I also did the Black Panther coloring book, or so-called Black Panther coloring book. I guess the most I've learned is that it's a protracted struggle, and it's one where you pass it on to the next generation. And that's what I'm glad about, is that I see a lot of these Panther Cubs coming up in the same spirit. I spoke one time and I raised the name of Micah Johnson and Gavin Long. And most of you don't even remember who them brothers was. But I said what they did it in the spirit of the Black Panther Party. A lot of people were upset about that. One of the brothers killed about 6 pigs in Dallas, Texas. The other one killed 3 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But this is after all the stuff that they had done. This is after Colando Castillo, the one that got shot in front of his little baby daughter girl in the car. That was right after that. And you can only take so much, especially if you're a Panther, especially if you're a veteran, which both of those brothers were. One was in the Marine Corps, one was in the Army. And they were more than likely suffering from PTSD. And they had just had enough. And they took it to another level. I sat on death row in the Sacramento County Jail. I sat on death row in the Sacramento County Jail for a year, fighting 187 on a police officer. I was also an artist, so I did the drawings to illustrate the 10-point platform and program that was in the paper every week for a while. And I look and I see what happened to Asata and the fact that she was able to go to Cuba. You know, stuff like this is going to keep on happening. They're going to keep on killing Africans, and there's going to be some soldiers in who got the courage to stand up and do something about it. And if they have to leave the country, it's a good thing that there was some place like Cuba to take them in. And we need some other places to be able to take brothers and sisters in when they're in that kind of dilemma, you know?
This place, like Haiti, you, the destroyer of all that does not serve your greed, you punish her because she is no longer your whore, your offshore playground for your greed and depravity. 638 times and more. 638 times and more, you tried to cut off her head, killing her will to survive. She survives, and I will not denounce her. You continue to starve.
You know what, brother? You know what Brother Hank is saying is also true in Vietnam. We had to watch out for the rednecks more than we did whoever the Vietnamese was we were supposed to be fighting. They had a prison in Vietnam in Long Binh. They called it Long Binh Jail. They had over 900 Africans in there, 900 African Americans in there. It was built for African Americans because of the racial problems we had in Vietnam that nobody talks about. And I think that if you do any research on Long Binh Jail, you'll find out that them brothers burned that jail down in 1968, right after King was assassinated. Them brothers rioted in that prison and burned it down. There's a lot of soldiers that was locked up in there for racial stuff that happened in Vietnam. We were getting in a fight with the Klan, the Aryan Brotherhood, and the American Nazi Party. We had to fight them in Vietnam. We had to worry about them more than we did the Vietnamese. We pretty much got along with the Vietnamese. They look at us and say, "You soul brothers, same. We same. I say, "Oh, wow, this is deep."
Dwayne Cases, formerly Dwayne Case was formerly in the Navy between 84 to 88. And his story intrigued me.
We're part of the Enterprise battle group. So the Enterprise is the carrier. My ship was actually Truxton, which is a nuclear um, guided missile submarine. I'm a guided missile cruiser. I was in combat twice. The first time was in '86. We were in the Mediterranean, and then the second time was in '88. We were in the Indian Ocean. So in '86 was a operation to get Gaddafi, and it changed my desire to be in the Navy. It made me open my eyes to understanding what being in the armed forces is really about. And coming out of high school, going right in, my idea was I wanted to see the world. And that's one of the reasons why I joined the Navy. There are some other reasons, but that was probably the biggest reason for my own personal reason to go into the Navy. I wanted to see the world. And it kind of started off that way until we got into combat. What made combat particularly eye-opening for me were the comments that were being hurled. So I'm on this ship, and at the time I was working in I was doing mess duty, and I was working in the chief's quarters. And the language was appalling. So we're getting ready, we're setting up for combat, and you got all these white men talking about these sand niggas and camel jockeys and all these other pejoratives that they're hurling against Gaddafi. I saw Gaddafi as I see myself. He's an African. All of his phenotype says so. And the idea that this glee to go murder this man, it bothered me. It made me rethink my position being in the military, particularly the Navy. So when it was all said and done, make a long story short, there were bombing runs that were done. At some point, bombings were taking place. I understand that the Gaddafi at that point wasn't killed. He was missed. The target was missed. And the collateral damage, I believe, included his wife and children. Of course, years later, Gaddafi is killed by the Obama administration for doing what I think conscious people of African descent understand that Gaddafi is trying to create a united continent, so to say.
Or United States of Africa, as many people say.
Yeah, that's what I understand. So he met his demise that way. And for me, like I said, being in the military, that was pivotal for me. I didn't want to be in anymore because I understood my purpose was serving the empire. And that empire had grievances against people who looked like me. They didn't have written grievances because people who look like me, African, never imposed any kind of danger against the United States. It's always been the other way around. The United States has always imposed danger against people of African descent. We noticed through the Caribbean.
What I can tell you is that what I can tell you is that you have the Secretary of Defense, in his mind, the Secretary of War, that's trying to suppress the freedom of the press. And so I will tell you, we're walking down a slippery slope here. What he wants to do is control the information that's being released to the American people, whether it's unclassified or classified. And that is not why our press was created. It was created to not only let the American people know what was going on, it is our government, but to also be quite frank with you, a watchdog of our government to make sure that they're not doing things that against the Constitution. One of the things I will tell you, Sylvester, let me digress a little bit. When HECSF had his meeting with the top generals and their senior enlisted. Well, if you rewind back a decade or so, well, a little over, well, time flies by, 2 decades ago, I would have been in that room for the positions I held for the last 10 years of my Air Force career. I was an advisor to 4-star generals, well, 2 and 4-star generals, and those folks like myself, the senior enlisted leaders, to the general officers, were, I wouldn't say invited, but were directed to come to that forum with the Secretary of Defense. And I would have been in that room, and I would have tell you that I offered to retire. On the enlisted side, you can't resign, but you can retire if you have enough time. And I could have retired. And I offered to retire on less issues than what the Secretary of Defense was trying to get our senior admirals, senior general officers, senior enlisted to do. And that was to break the law, to break international law, to break the Geneva Conventions. When he said, hey, listen, you're trained to kill things and break things, and whether you do it illegal or not, we got your back. Then you have the president to come along and say, oh, by the way, you heard what HECSF said a few minutes ago. Oh, by the way, you can practice on our civilians in some of our cities. So now, why do I add that to this? Well, those are the type of things that HECSF want to suppress. Us, our military, our government breaking the law, and don't want anybody talking about that. Things that are illegal are unethical. Our military are bound to say, hey, no, we can't do that. So HECSF wants to control the information, so those things that he's trying to do that are illegal or unethical will not get out to the people. And I am very proud to say that the majority of the press said no to that, to include, of all things, Fox News, where he came from.
Right. So you were actually, when you were in the Pentagon,
Yes.
And you were close to the press pool, or what do you call it? The press.
Yeah, in one of my positions at the Pentagon, in fact, when I was working in the Undersecretary of Defense for policy, number 3 position in the Pentagon, I wasn't, but I was working for the individual.
The Democrats tend to, when they get into power, they tend to do this whole let bygones be bygones, let's move on, bring the country together, and all this other crap. But I don't want people to forget about all of these things that's going on that is illegal. If you and I did that, we would be under the jail.
Yep. Yeah, we'd be in prison. I should have asked Congressman Khanna about that. It was the subject of my daily take today. I don't know the answer to the question, Angela, but I would be astonished if there weren't, at the very least, journalists who are doing this, and hopefully members of Congress. I'm with you. So, Angela, thanks for the reminder. I'll try to bring it up next time. Thank you. John in West Allis, Wisconsin, listening on WGKB. Hey, John, what's up?
Well, I'm wondering why the continual trashing of the use of vaccines is being done. Now, I can understand a lot of the other focus, the divisiveness, the immigrant thing, the social mores things, all that stuff. I can understand why the maggots are doing that. But what I do not understand is why they continue to do this dangerous thing about trying to make people afraid of vaccines. Yeah. It's going to cost probably millions of lives in the next
It's already costing lives. I mean, we've had several children now die from measles in the United States, a disease that didn't exist in this country in 2008. I mean, it is costing lives right now, what Bob Kennedy is doing. And I can't explain it, John. I really can't. I mean, I had Bob on my program, on this program, many times years ago, and we talked about vaccines a number of times. And he sounded rational at that time. He was like, well, I'm concerned that we're giving, 3 shots with MMR at too early an age, and we should probably space them out by 6 months. But all my kids are vaccinated, and I support vaccines. I mean, these are pretty much verbatim quotes from Bob Kennedy. But then, we learned that, no, actually, all along, he's been in this weird kind of netherworld of anti-vax, weird alternative health hysteria. And whether it's, the only thing that he's found that can get him power and money and fame, and thus, I don't know, access to pretty ladies or something. I don't have any... I don't know. Maybe he decided that being an environmental lawyer, wouldn't cut it in the age of Trump, and so he had to, pull out something else. I just don't understand it, John. I really don't. I'm sorry, I can't give you an easy answer. Doug in Portland. Hey, Doug, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I had one thought I wanted to share, which is just that it's so hard to keep on keeping on in this world. He is so crazy. The administration is so destructive. The only way I've come to reconcile this is to look at Trump and his administration like some sort of dying animal, like a big bear that is just lashing out, is doing anything it can. It doesn't have a strategy, doesn't have a hope. Yeah. But it's because it is just going down. Yeah.
Robert Reich today in his Substack newsletter, which is excellent and I highly recommend, talked about how he's just a few months older or younger than Donald Trump. They're about the same age. They're both pushing 80. And he said, one of the things that he's noticed is that his filter has diminished.